Hello, welcome to Career GPS for seniors, developing your post-grad plan. I am Lindsay Granger Weaver. I use she, her pronouns, and I am one of the associate directors on the advising and programs team at Beyond Barnard. I'm also the department's equity lead, just kind of making sure that all of our outcomes and programming and all of that fun stuff are equitable. So welcome seniors, congrats on being seniors. All right, so that's me. Again, I'm Lindsay. This is me from my senior fall. It feels like a million years ago, 2005. That stings. I'm not pandering by putting up a picture on this t-shirt. I am a Columbia College alum. At that point, when this picture was taken, I was at a football game because I don't know if people still go to those, but they were fun for me. And I didn't career-wise, really didn't know what I was doing. I was an intern at Teach for America doing their communications, and I realized I did not want to spend the bulk of my time turning links different colors and branding, but I did like working somewhere that had a mission. And I'd always been interested in education. And so I feel like at this stage, I was deciding between education, but not teaching, because I knew that wasn't my thing, and perhaps law school. And I feel like there are a lot of people in that boat. And so, yeah, so I hope this person in this picture would be proud of who this person is right now. Probably very surprised I'm working for a Columbia University institution, but here we are. So, and here we are, agenda. So first we'll go over the grad school question. Should I go to grad school? It's a question we get a lot. It's something that a lot of people are thinking about at this stage. And so we'll talk through that a little bit. This presentation will be a lot more job focused, but graduate school is always kind of part of the general career conversation. So after that, we'll talk about just recruiting processes, general timelines for things, some concrete tips for starting your job search, some things to think about, and what you can do now, even if you're not in a stage to actively apply to things. And then we'll go into pitching yourself and making connections. So just really touching on the importance of networking, but also providing scripts for how that's going to go. And then some next steps that you can take from today, some events that were coming up, and just some general Barnard resources. And then Q&A. Again, I want to leave a lot of time for Q&A because this tends to be a little stressful time of year for everyone, but especially for seniors. So I want to make sure that you leave here with some questions answered, even ones that, I may go over in this workshop, but if you have other ones, feel free. I'm here where appointments are very backed up. So use this as a time to get some information. But first, you're not behind. We've been having appointments all throughout the year. We've never really had a break.
For the last hour and gave us a lecture.
Okay. So you had a break, but this is something we hear a lot. Am I behind? I haven't been able to get an internship. Am I behind? I haven't really been able to wrap my head around doing career related things. It's very difficult to plan ahead during a pandemic. We need so much uncertainty, but you just need to share that no matter what you were able to do or not able to do, you're not behind. You're here now, we can move forward with career stuff. And just really want to hammer home, just like focusing on the things you can do now, not what you couldn't do before, because so many people were under those same parameters, but also there's so much to process. So I encourage you to process how you need to process. If that's Furman or some other outside help or social support, please do that. That's helpful. Definitely something we're doing in our office, but just want to start off with that. Now I'm going to hopefully back that up with not being behind with kind of like some steps that can help kind of move us forward now. So yeah. So now the grad school question, that's a very hard pivot, but here we are. Should I go to grad school? Something we get a lot this time of year. And so sometimes the answer is yes, sometimes the answer is no. Usually it's a firm maybe. So if you're asking yourself this question or asking other people this question, really consider your motivations. Are there things that you genuinely want to dig deeper into? Are there skills that you really feel like you need to learn before going into the job that you want to have? Or are you hoping to avoid a job market and work, because eventually those things will happen. And so think about why you're considering grad school. I think also the careers that you're interested in, this really goes with that. If some of them do have the barrier to entry is a master's. So if you are thinking of something like social work, or if you're thinking about like law or some aspects of teaching, for some institutions where you teach, not all of them, but a master's may be the way that you start your career. Other times the expectation is that you work first. So if you're considering, business school, then the expectation is that you have work experience at the time of application. Also think about what the careers expect. Some people, some organizations would rather you work, get some experience to really figure out if taking that next step in your career via a graduate degree is the right thing. Sometimes folks don't know how to place applicants that have a lot of front end education, but not a lot of actual hands-on experience. And so really figure out what the industry expectations are before making that leap into grad school. And also think of yourself, do you need a break from school? That is real. Do you, or do you want to go straight through, even thinking about the careers and how that may look on the job market, because you feel like you may not want to go back? Do you want to spend a lot of money? Because usually grad school is paid for by the individual. Often there isn't as much financial aid available, though there is some. And so really like thinking through all of these things should help answer that. Should I go to grad school? Should I go, especially right now, kind of question. And like I said at the outset, grad school it's very likely that you may end up furthering your education in some way. Means you just want to make sure that it is right for you and that it's right for the career you want to have. Because grad school is not going anywhere. Most programs, especially reputable programs, they're going to be around when you're ready, and they're happy to have you. And even if you have gone on a circuitous journey to get to that point, then congratulations, you have a personal statement. So I will bring grad school in at various points in this workshop, but I wanted to address it head on because it's another, aside from like, am I behind? This is probably the second question that we get often this time of year. So now some more hard job search stuff, recruitment process and timeline. So most fields are not hiring for May graduates right now. It may seem like it because there are some very high profile industries, specifically financial services, consulting, and large tech companies are the ones that really tend to hire right now for starts next summer. And that's part of it, is that they're competing with the same group of people. But the vast majority of organizations recruit people for, into these roles that are to start at some point between July and September of next year, between January and May of next year. And so there are things you can do to set yourself up for that job search, but just know that if you're not actively applying for things right now, it's okay. There's a very good chance that the job you end up having, like the organization doesn't know that it will need to be filled. It may not be created yet. And so, there's always a misconception that like fall is when you get the jobs, and that's not entirely the case. So this is the breakdown from the class of 2020. We're still getting the data from 21, but initial numbers look very similar. And so as you can see, the organization or the industries that hire right now, so financial services 12%, consulting 7%, tech includes big tech and small tech, and that those aren't all hiring right now. And so like these are small numbers compared to say education or healthcare, law and politics, all the rest of the ones that are not hiring right now. So the places that aren't doing fall recruiting are the bulk of the places that your Barnard peers end up in. So the job market is not as bad as it was this time last year or even earlier this year, but it's still kind of tough, but definitely pretty weird. And so I just want to like touch on that some, like give some expectations. So thinking about the environment of work, and know that remote opportunities, hybrid opportunities are likely here to stay in some capacity. a lot of offices were big companies, were bringing people back in the summer. And then with Delta, we're like, actually, no, thank you. And my sister-in-law works at an insurance company, and she said it was literally a week where they were like, yes, come back. Actually, no. So know that they're here to stay. Also know that remote work is very different from remote school. And so a lot of folks are like, I want to be in person. I want to do this and I want to do these things that I've not been able to do because Zoom University has been terrible. And it's not the same vibe. But if that is something that you're interested in, then you will very likely be able to find positions that you may not have been able to have access to now that things are remote. So there's a pro and con there. Short-term opportunities should not be sneezed at. So things like maybe post-grad internships, or even having a job that you know is only going to be for a few months after graduation could be helpful in some of that skill building that you may feel like you weren't able to do before, but also something that may help your career, but you may also never be able to do again as you get going into something that's a little more official. So I was speaking with one alum the other day who spent the summer doing like tour guide work in, I think, Vermont. She's like, it's something I never thought I would do, but after just sitting on a computer and like an interest in conservation and an interest in climate. And so this kind of like snowballed into that. And so it was like a nice break before kind of jumping into something that's a little bit more career oriented, but also something that, you know, like something, the short-term opportunity was a very helpful one for her to get that sort of clarity. Strategic and wide-ranging search. And so that may sound a little contradictory, but be strategic in the sense that you really want to narrow in on some of the things that you want to do, some of the things that you may be interested in. It could be a list, but as long as it's not every single thing in the world, because having a job search strategy that is focused on maybe like a skill set for now, or focused on an organization. And then within that, seeing all the different places that can kind of go from there. So if you have an interest in writing, that's something that can be done across industries. And so that's an example of being strategic in the sense that like you're looking at writing, but then wide ranging and like thinking of all the places that you can use it, because that way you won't miss some of the opportunities that are out there. And then to think about the skills that you want to use in relation to industries that are growing. And so as you've seen, you know, growth industries right now are like healthcare, but also in things like e-commerce and marketing. There's so much data out there, and organizations need people who can go through those things, need people who can effectively communicate. And so looking at places that, you know, there are a lot of jobs and seeing where you fit may also be helpful in just, you know, covering all your bases and trying to make sure that you have something post-graduation. There's also no right or wrong number of jobs to apply to. You really want to apply to everything that you're interested in, and let them weed you out, but also use, like, the application is just the first step in you figuring out if it's a job you actually want. And so, you know, you don't want to limit, say, I'm going to apply to 10 jobs. Like, that's probably not enough. But also if you're applying to like 100 but not getting any feedback, then maybe look at the quality of your job documents. So there's no wrong number. The only wrong number is if your job documents are not great. And then that is like, don't apply to anything without a strong application. So is your resume, you know, does it fit what you're applying to? Is your cover letter show off your skill set and experiences in the ways that make sense, and the ways that make sense to both your experience, but also to the industries that you're applying for? And so actually, and at the end, I'll go over kind of some upcoming events, but we're having Career Skills Week soon that has resume, cover letter, networking, and interviewing skills. And so we kind of cover all of that. But there are things that you can do, just like having strong documents to get through a very high volume job market is one of the best things you can do for yourself. And then, you know, internships may become jobs. And so in the before times, one of the things that had a really high conversion rate was seniors who had spring semester internships, then converting those to full-time jobs post-graduation. And so it kind of goes back to that bullet from the previous slide about like short-term opportunities. That's something that, you know, you could see if you, as you start to look at jobs, if there are internships that are relevant, that you can then apply to that too, do that, and then see where it goes. So, best case scenario, you have more experience on your resume, or worst case scenario, you have more experience on your resume. Best case is that it could turn into a job, either that or within that organization moving forward. So, I mean, I guess like the key points of these last few slides is that you're not behind. There's definitely most jobs are not hiring right now, but there are some things to think about as you enter this job market that's a little different, but probably what it's going to be for the next at least 18 months. So next we'll talk about some concrete strategies for starting your job search. So even if you're not actively, submitting applications right now, there are definitely things you can do, like decide what you're looking for, update those application documents, create an actual plan that'll help you keep moving through this process. Then also building a support network, because job search is a lot easier to do when you have people who have your back. So decide what you're looking for. This feels a little like, yeah, duh, of course. But think about, what job titles, thinking about what skills that you want to use. And so you can do these things on a variety of sites. And there's one that's a good one called ONET Online. And you can put in a skill, and then it'll give you all the relevant job titles for it. And so that's going to be great for doing more research into jobs, because once you have job titles, you can then start to read active job descriptions to see what folks are actually looking for within these roles. And it'll also help you with networking. And so you can find people with these specific job titles and know that they'll be able to give insight on an experience that you're considering. And also considering skills and interests. And this is really helpful for if you, for example, want to follow your passion into a career, but don't necessarily know the best place to start. So if you're interested in sustainability, for example, but there's so many different things that fall under that umbrella, one way to figure out exactly what you're looking for is consider your skill set against that interest and say, well, I'm interested in sustainability, but I'm also really good at writing. And so what can I do within that? And so it could be, working in communications at an organization that does work that you want to do, or, building out social media, or building out, certain strategies for folks. And so it's really about taking what you're good at as an entry point into this larger thing that you care about. And then if you don't know what you're looking for, which is also fine, think about what things you're interested in that could become careers. And also, think about what you enjoy being good at. Because not everything you're good at is something you want to make a job. Not everything you're interested in is something that should be your job. And so it's really about kind of prioritizing where you want to go, prioritizing where you want to place these certain things, so that you at least know that you're moving in a direction that will be satisfying in some way, whether intrinsically by following a thing that you really care about, or just day-to-day skills wise by following something that you enjoy being good at. So often you can think about something that you're good at that you don't enjoy, and that is the definition of burnout. And so we really want to minimize that part. So next, update your application documents. So this was a little bit from before, which is making sure you have strong documents. So with your resume, add your most recent experiences. Those are typically the things that folks add last. And then it's oh no, and they're usually not as well formed as the rest of the resume. So update that, change the dates. If you've changed your major, just kind of make sure that all of the important information is there. And then also creating a master resume. And so the resume that you apply to a job with is 9 times out of 10 one page. But the one that you have on your computer can be much longer, and it can have kind of every single thing that you've done in these jobs, all these well-written bullet points that are just waiting to be tailored down to a page that you can then apply to a job with. And so take the time, I think, to really build out a resume at this point, because it's a lot easier to narrow it down and know that it's like a tight, relevant document than to have something and say, well, I think I did something related to this job here, and then have to like scramble for it while you're applying. In terms of a cover letter, they should be pretty very much tailored to every new job. But what you can do is review some of the things on your resume, think about what you expect to be applying for, and then write out some bullet points that you can then turn into paragraphs for your cover letter. And so if you know that like your summer internship, for example, is something that you really want to move forward with and kind of see how you can make a career, then you know that's going to be something that'll be in your cover letter. So just start to play around with that. Start to write out some, experiences. Start to write out some of the details that won't fit on your resume, but will still be really relevant for a cover letter, because it's also good to have for that. And then thinking ahead to interviews, when you have to have these like narrative responses to things, that information will also come in handy there too. And then your LinkedIn profile. So again, just like your resume, because it essentially is a living version of your resume, you want to make sure it's updated, and also update the about section, thinking about the things that you want to do, being a little more forward thinking than the rest of your resume, the rest of the profile, because that's really when you connect with people to do networking, or when recruiters go to your site, they want to see like, what are you up to? What are you interested in? So that they can then reach out to you if necessary for the jobs that they have. And so if you say, I'm really, have these experiences really focused on this sort of thing, and that's what they're looking to hire somebody for, then that's how they'll find you and then reach out. So next is create a job search plan. So think about where to look. I mean, general job boards, Handshake, LinkedIn Jobs is good if you set up the filters right. And then also Indeed is a very general site. And so I think these are good for both finding jobs or actively recruiting, but also just to do some research on jobs. And then also some like industry specific job boards. So places like, if you're interested in nonprofits, you can go to idealist.org, or if you're interested in media or like communications work, go to mediabistro.com, like sites like that. And you can typically just do a general search engine search with those keywords of job board for X, and then it'll come up. But those are good for kind of like honing in on the things. You have to do a lot less searching on those. And also when the industry, it's like the sites that folks think of when they're hiring. And so they may not come to Handshake, they may not come to LinkedIn, but they will go to those other boards. Add job search to your schedule. And so think about what days you would want to do which tasks. And so when you're actively applying, and there I have an example of this on the subsequent slide, but think about, do you have a few hours a day to do something, or do you have, on what days of the week do you want to do which things? And then just start to do them. It minimizes you being overwhelmed by feeling like you need to do the whole thing every single day. Like you need to look for a job, update your resumes, apply in like the span of a day or two. And it just like makes it so that you're constantly moving forward in the process. And also do make a tracker for applications once you do start to apply, but definitely for networking. And so it again, like visually organizes everything, and then just really helps you stick with that schedule. So a sample job search schedule could be this. Monday, you look for the jobs. You look at those job boards that I just looked at, maybe other places. Tuesday, you figure out which ones you actually want to apply to, and then update your resume, maybe tailor down your master resume to something shorter, start to pull out that cover letter content into letters. Wednesday, you can do some outreach, network with folks, see who in your network works at those companies, or maybe is adjacent to those, or in the same industries that you can then talk to and either say, hey, I've applied, or I'm about to apply. Then Thursday, you could actually hit submit on those jobs. Friday, recharge, take a break, because you've moved everything through and you don't have to think about, oh, I should be searching for jobs, because that's a Monday task. So, I mean, this is just one very basic sample search, the sample schedule, but it's something I highly recommend, because it just makes it so that there's constant movement without that like waking up at 4 a.m. cold sweat of I need to do everything right now, because that's not helpful. Then for applications, it's just a spreadsheet, and it's good to have the job title, the organization, the link to the posting, any potential contacts you have. So you can look at your networking tracker, which we'll look at next. If there is login information that you need to keep track of, because everything has your apply online and everything has a separate everything. So that maybe the date you applied, and then also kicking out to maybe 2 or 3 weeks if you haven't heard anything, then like the date for you to follow up with that organization. And for networking, the contact's name and organization, their contact information, whether it's their phone number, email, whatever, how you met, so that you can then remind them of that once you reach out, any date that you reach out, and then other notes. So if they're a Barnard alum, or if they're a former supervisor, or if there's something else, if you both, belong to the same gym or dog park or something, that can go in the other notes. So it's just another way to add those connections. But these are some just very, I'd say, samples, but also simple ways that you can just organize all of this information that job searches require you to have, so that it's just more manageable. And then while we're at it, sample grad school application tracker. It's less about the like doing something every single day, and more about keeping everything organized in one place. This is specifically helpful for essay prompts, because you don't want to end up you're applying to 7 schools and they all ask for similar things, and you can easily see that on a spreadsheet and write 1 or 2 essays that cover all the bases. So trackers are helpful for all the processes. And finally, in this part, building a support network. So job searches are tough, they're stressful, and so it's good to have people who are able to like help you manage that stress. So like close friends, family members, mentors, like people who can talk you off that ledge. The outer ring of people, so Barnard people, we would definitely be in that category anyway, but like mentors, advisors, like who can be professionally honest, like who can say, your documents aren't that great, or your approach wasn't working out, or just kind of like help you with the nuances of your job search. And then just kind of like hold space, because as you meet people along the way, they may fall into some of these categories, but it's really good to think about who's going to have your back during this process and how you want them to have your back, because like I said, it's not always fun. And it's not something that you want to do alone. And if you know that you got all these folks who are doing it with you, and all these people who you can bounce ideas off of and bounce things off of, and it just makes it a lot easier to move forward. So next, pitching yourself and making connections. So I talked about LinkedIn as a job board, but also the key purpose of LinkedIn is a networking site. If you go to the Barnard College page, you can find people and click on alumni. You can find folks on Barnard who have that as either, it's an alumni, but there's some current students on there too. But search with them, there are a lot of different filters, and it just makes it really easy to find people who are doing work you're interested in the area that you may want to do it. And then Barnard Connect, which is a Barnard specific LinkedIn. It's a little new. It launched in fall of 2019. We've been actively getting a lot of people on it. And so it's a similar situation where Explore the Community is like that alumni tab. So you can filter through people, again, locations, majors, experiences. And so these are really good places to start networking, and also to be able to cold reach out to people, because you've already got that connection, that Barnard connection in place. And so the next step of that, whenever we talk about networking, it's always like, well, what do I say? And so it's a 30-second pitch. I added 3-sentence pitch because very often these days you're reaching out to people online. There aren't a lot of in-person networking opportunities, unfortunately. And so just like having a general pitch involved. Hi, I'm blank, graduating from Barnard in May with a major in blank, primarily looking for opportunities in blank, but I'm also open to blank. And so that's more of an in-person, but the general vibe is really how you reach out to people. It is, I don't know if y'all know Mad Libs, but whenever I see openings, my like 5th grade self is like, yes, now or whatever. And so a more targeted, so this is a good one for like a general event. You don't know who you're going to meet. You're just meeting the person. A targeted pitch would be one, say if you were at a workshop, or if you were at an event, or if you were, a lot of some of our events are virtual, but we still have opportunities for students and alums to connect. And so this would be, if you know the person, this is the type of one that you're going to see. Now, not read it. I need some water. But it kind of, it's good because it shows that you have done your research on both them and what they're into. And also it just provides a lot more targeting to the eventual conversation. So the key is the tone between focus. Hire me, I'll do anything is not a focused way. You want to make sure that there is something that you are saying that you can do, something that you are interested in, something to kind of sink their teeth into. So it's that you are the person who can do that thing. Then flexibility. So keeping the options open, not saying I'm only going to do this and only this, or leaving them with that impression, but rather showing that like, this is what you're interested in. There is some variability because you don't know every single thing about what would happen within that organization or that industry. So it's really, it takes some practice, and especially takes some practice when you are starting to email folks. And so it's a little bit of practice here. And I'd say for the interest of time, I'm going to pause for a little bit. I would say write this down or just take it from the slides that you may receive later, because this is a really good script for reaching out to people on LinkedIn or Partner Connect or other places, just a brief message that says a little bit about who you are, but also why you're reaching out to that person. So the last bit, I would love to hear more about your experience at blank. So it could be, where they're currently working. It could be somewhere that they used to work, or a fellowship that they did, or a special program, or something that shows them that you have looked them up a little bit. And so that they know why you're reaching out. They know that you're not just sending 25 people the same introduction, but that you've actually tailored it to them, because that does help, and that is feedback that we get from just networking in general, but especially from alums. So I'll take another sip. And so, like I said, next in a couple of weeks, we're doing for Career Skills Week, a lot of deeper dive into networking. So I would say, if you feel like this is some part that you need help with, then attend that event. And so some next steps, some Barnard resources. So these are the next steps. So exploration and assessment. If you are still like, I'm not sure what I'm looking for, or I've done a lot of things and I'm not quite sure where to target my search, then you can do some exploration activities with us. We also have formal assessments that are the strong interest inventory and the Myers-Briggs type indicator, which are just general industry appropriate assessments that help people figure out a direction for their search. Then work on job search documents. So either with an advisor like myself or with one of the peer career advisors, can walk you through resumes and cover letters just to make sure that they are strong. Interview and negotiation practice. And so those are all advising appointments, but also in our career skills workshop series, we'll have these as well. And then strengthening and growing your network. So using that pitch from the last couple of slides to really start to find people who can help push your career along. So this is Career Skills Week. All these events and things are up in Handshake. And so resumes and cover letters, networking and interviewing. So it's a Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday affair. And this should be really informative. Beyond that, we're advising in programs. That's my team. Partnerships and employer relations. There are there's internship funding available. That's the group that does opportunities fairs. And then we have a communications team as well. So if you've received emails through Handshake, that came from comms. And then some specific events. And so Career Insights, our panel series with alums that are very topical. And so it's either alums who share specific identity or share a work, like professional identity, or have the same major. Those are Wednesdays. All of them are virtual this semester, so you can find them in Handshake. The next one is this coming Wednesday, and it is data science careers. And then Mentor in Residence, which happens on Fridays, and they are one-on-one or very small group conversations with an alum who, job title is, it's all in Handshake, who they are and what they've done. And so you can really just get that one-on-one conversation with someone. And really, I've heard that it really helps to rip the Band-Aid off of networking a little bit. And so that could be useful. Some specific events, so our alumni chats, which we do once a semester. It's just like a large group thing. And I think this year it'll definitely be on Zoom, but different rooms. And so we're pulling together the list of alums for that, similar to Mentor in Residence at a larger scale. How to explore careers, and exploration workshop similar to this one, and then starting your winter break job search. That's farther along, but mark your calendar for that. And then these next two resources, so Career Exploration Toolkit and the Grad School Toolkit, are resources we have in courseworks that will that have recorded workshops, recorded webinars, and then also some self-assessment questions to really get you to think about, for exploration is really to get you to think about, different things that have been helpful in exploring careers, and also point you to resources. The Grad School Toolkit has some events we did last year with specific types of grad schools, also from summer 2020, with kind of walking through the process more specifically for PhD programs, and then some self-assessment questions. So if you're interested in those, you can just send me your uni and then I can sign you up, and the events are in Handshake. So there's my email if you want that, or you can send it to Beyond Barnard. But that is Senior GPS. I'm gonna stop sharing, but feel free to ask any questions either in the chat or unmute yourself. And I can also stop recording if you would like. So if someone wants me to, the name of the website related to job skills, so it's ONET online. And I will put that onetonline.org. I just put it in the chat. Yes. Okay, you can be emailed this presentation. It will also be posted somewhere. But what other questions do we have? I have the chat box open, so if you don't want to share with everyone, you can share it directly to me. But I'm here to answer anything that clarify anything I talked about in the slides, or just kind of any other questions you may have. You're welcome. All right, well, I'm gonna close this out. Okay, I'm gonna close this out, but stick around in case folks want to ask questions off the record. Totally fine. Thanks so much, everyone, for coming. Hope to see you at other events and around the office.